Welcome back to today's deep dive, our favorite learner. We are so glad you're here because we're starting off with, well, a pretty wild situation.
Oh, yeah, it's a great story.
Right. So picture this. It's 2012, and there is this structural engineer visiting from Washington, D.C., and he's just standing right in the middle of a road in North Carolina,
Totally ignoring the cars.
completely ignoring the traffic. He's staring straight up at this 120-foot waterfall that is literally pouring over a massive cavernous rock overhang.
Because for, decades, driving your car directly underneath this plunging water was like this iconic American road trip milestone.
Exactly. But as this engineer is staring up at the ceiling of that rock cave, he spots this huge, jagged fissure just spreading across the stone, and he realizes, like right then and there, that millions of tons of rock are getting ready to just collapse.
Which is the exact moment that human infrastructure had to, politely step aside and let gravity take the wheel.
Yeah, they shut that driving portion down immediately.
Good call on their part.
Definitely. And that narrowly avoided disaster really perfectly sets the stage for our mission today. We are exploring the Highlands Plateau down in North Carolina, which is tucked away in the Nantahala National Forest.
It's gorgeous up there.
It really is. But here's the thing for you listeners. When you pull up a map of this area, it's just this chaotic sea of green with like hundreds of little blue squiggles everywhere.
Yeah, and it can be really overwhelming because you aren't just looking at a typical patch of woods. You're looking at a temperate rainforest.
Wait, really? A rainforest in North Carolina?
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about high altitudes, incredibly dense vegetation, and just a staggering volume of water constantly carving its way through all this ancient granite.
Wow. Which means picking a trail is kind of a massive gamble if you don't know what you're looking for. I mean, a blue line on a map doesn't really tell you if you're in for a paved afternoon stroll where you can bring a stroller, or if you're going to end up, stranded on some muddy cliffside.
Which happens way more often than you'd think.
I bet. So our mission today is to cut through all that information overload. We want to give you a customized audio trail map to the waterfall capital of the South.
And we're going to categorize it by exactly what you might be looking for.
Exactly. We're color coding this by how much you want to sweat versus how much you just want to snap a cool photo. Photography spots, places to picnic or swim, and the spots that demand a true, serious hike.
I think organizing it by intention is really the only way to tackle the highlands. Because the microclimates vary so wildly up there, you really need to understand the terrain before you even step out of your car. It completely dictates the kind of day you're going to have.
So let's start with the absolute path of least resistance. I'm talking about the waterfalls you can practically see while adjusting your rearview mirror on US Highway 64.
Ah, the accessible giants.
Yes, it's basically like a drive-through fast food lane for nature lovers. And the star of this group is Bridal Veil Falls, which is the very same waterfall that almost crushed that engineer's car.
Right. Just a couple miles outside of town.
Yeah. And depending on the rainfall, you're looking at a 45-foot drop. Or if the seasonal flow is peaking, it's this cascading system that starts way at the top of the ridge and drops a towering 120 feet.
And, well, even though you can't drive under it anymore for obvious reasons, you can still pull over and actually walk behind it. It's still the only waterfall in North Carolina where you can stand behind the curtain of water.
But, okay, the detail that completely fascinated me about Bridal Veil is what happens at the very bottom. You have this ancient, roaring geological wonder, right? And it hits the pavement and drains directly into a municipal sewer grate.
I know. It is a totally surreal juxtaposition. You have this million-year-old natural forest just being neatly swallowed up by like a piece of concrete city plumbing.
It's wild.
It really is. It highlights how tightly humans have tried to just engineer their way right into this rainforest environment.
So true. So you pull over, snap a photo of the sewer draining waterfall, and then less than a mile down the exact same road, you hit the heavy hitter, which is Dry Falls.
Oh, Dry Falls is fantastic.
It's a massive, like 65 to 80-foot drop, depending on who you ask. And just like Bridal Veil, there's a paved path that takes you under this massive overhanging bluff, so you can walk behind the roaring water. But wait, I have to ask you.
Sure.
If the path takes you right next to an 80-foot wall of plunging water, and everyone who visits warns that you are going to get thoroughly misted and soaked,
Right.
who in the world approved the name Dry Falls?
Yeah, it is definitely a bit of false advertising, especially, after a heavy summer storm.
Mm-hmm.
But the name actually points to a pretty fascinating geological mechanism.
Okay, lay it on me.
So that overhanging bluff you walk under, it only exists because of differential erosion.
Meaning like different rocks break down at different speeds.
Precisely. You have a very hard, resistant rock layer sitting right on top of much softer rock layers beneath it. And over thousands of years, the river water swirling at the base erodes that soft rock backward, carving out a deep cave.
Oh,
But that hard-capped rock on top stays intact, kind of like a roof. So the water shoots out over the lip of the hard rock, completely bypassing the cave behind it. It's basically a natural amphitheater built by erosion.
that makes a lot of sense. And it's incredibly accessible. Like, there's a wheelchair-accessible viewing platform right from the parking area. But a quick warning for you if you plan to visit. If you want to walk through that natural amphitheater, there is a massive logistical trap waiting for you at the parking lot.
Oh, the parking fee.
Yes. You need to bring exactly $3 in cash.
Which sounds completely archaic, right, in a world of tap-to-pay apps and everything.
Right. I would totally just assume I could pay on my phone. But apparently, the electronicrecreation.gov kiosks out there are just completely unreliable.
And that's because of the topography. Think about where you actually are. You are at the bottom of a deep granite gorge, surrounded by a dense canopy of old-growth trees.
Oh, so no signal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how good your carrier is, 1,000,000 tons of stone and wood will block a cellular signal every time. So relying on modern tech in a temperate rainforest is just a classic rookie mistake.
Note to self, keep 3 crisp dollar bills in the glove box.
Preparation is key out there. The landscape dictates the rules, not the cell tower.
Definitely. Okay, so if you keep driving down that same scenic byway, the gorge gets significantly deeper, the road gets much narrower, and you hit Cullasaja Falls.
Right.
This is a 250-foot unmarked beast of a drop, but the road is so tight there is only enough pull-off space for maybe 2 or 3 cars.
And logistics really matter here for safety. If you're heading west from Highlands, that tiny pull-off is on the left, so you'd have to blind cross a narrow, winding mountain road to park.
Yeah, that sounds sketchy.
It is. It's significantly safer to approach it from the Franklin side, heading east, so the pull-off is naturally on your right.
Okay, good pro tip. Now, local photographers actually say the best time to shoot this 250-foot monster is in the dead of winter, which seems counterintuitive to me. Wouldn't you want to capture it when all the lush green rainforest plants are blooming?
You would think so, but that lush greenery is actually the problem. In the spring and summer, the deciduous canopy, the broad leaves of the oaks and maples,
Yeah.
it becomes so thick it acts like a solid green curtain. It completely obscures the sheer scale of the drop. You can't even see the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
But in the winter, when those trees drop their leaves, the sightlines suddenly open up. Cullasaja transforms from this sort of hidden, mumbled roar in the trees into this stark, massive wall of white water cascading down the gorge.
That sounds visually stunning, and 0 hiking effort required. And just to round out the easy access spots, there's also Lake Sequoia, right by the Green Highlands town sign. It's a man-made spillover from a dam with super easy pull-off access.
Right.
So that is your roadside itinerary. But gazing at water from a paved ledge or your car window really only scratches the surface.
It does. I mean, sighting a waterfall from a parking lot is entirely different from actually interacting with the landscape.
Which brings us to segment 2, the spots where you leave the safety rails behind. We're talking about the falls, where locals actually go to jump in, swim, sunbathe, and slide down the rocks.
The action falls.
Yes. And let's start with a place that has the absolute greatest literal name on any map, Bust Your Butt Falls.
Which is officially named Quarry Falls, but literally no local has ever called it that.
Never. It's right on the Cullasaja River, and people spend all afternoon picnicking on these giant boulders. They use a rope to climb up to a jump-off rock, and as the name promises, they slide down a natural rock chute right into a freezing cold swimming hole.
It's very popular.
But I have to push back here for a second. We just talked about dry falls having paved paths and sturdy railings. Bust Your Butt Falls sounds like a personal injury lawyer's dream. Are people really just voluntarily throwing themselves down wet granite? Is gravity the only equipment you need?
They are. And it is entirely at their own risk. There are no lifeguards out there. This is where you trade that human-engineered safety for raw, unpredictable physics.
Yikes.
Yeah, those boulders are incredibly slick.
Sure.
Millennia of rushing water have polished the granite to the smoothness of glass. And then you add a microscopic layer of algae that thrives in the damp environment.
Oh, man.
And you effectively have an ice rink made of stone.
That sounds incredibly dangerous.
It absolutely can be, which is why spatial awareness and timing are just everything. You should never, under any circumstances, slide when the water is running high after a heavy rain.
Why does the water volume change the danger level so drastically? Does it just like push you down the rock faster?
Faster, yes. But the real danger is what happens at the bottom. High water volume creates something called a hydraulic trap.
Wait, what exactly is a hydraulic trap?
Think of it like a washing machine tilted on its side.
Okay.
When a massive volume of water pours over a rock ledge and plunges into a pool, it hits the bottom and aggressively curls back on itself. It creates this strong recirculating current.
So the water spins.
Exactly. It pushes down, sweeps along the bottom, rises to the surface, and then actually flows backward toward the waterfall.
So if you slide into that.
It pulls you down, pushes you around, and won't let you swim out. It traps buoyant objects, including people.
Wow.
When the water is low and manageable, But Your Butt Falls is a playground. But when the river is surging, it is a deadly hydraulic trap. You really have to read the environment. The water levels completely dictate the line between a fun picnic and a dangerous situation.
That is a terrifying but very necessary visual. Thank you for that. Now, if you want a slightly more controlled sliding option, there is also Sliding Rock nearby in Cashiers. Super easy to access, just a 1/10 of a mile walk. You sunbathe, picnic, and slide right into the pool at the bottom.
Yeah, it really is sort of a communal hub. You see families, locals, and out-of-towners all sharing the same polished rocks, drawn by that instinctual desire to just immerse themselves in cold mountain water on a hot day.
It's nature's water park. Okay, so we've survived the washing machine of Bust Your Butt Falls. We've dried off on a warm boulder. And now it is time to leave the crowds completely behind. We're lacing up the boots and heading into the deep woods.
This is where the temperate rainforest really reveals its complexity.
We've kicked this off with Secret Falls, also known as Big Shoals. Now, calling it Secret Falls is hilarious to me because it has a dedicated parking lot, and it's printed on literally every tourist map in the county.
Not much of a secret anymore.
Right. It's an easy to moderate half-mile hike over exposed roots and wooden stairs, and it features this calm top view with a sudden, steep 50-foot drop-off, leading to a beautiful, chilly oasis of a swimming hole at the base. But I gotta ask, if it's on a map and has a parking lot, the secret is out. It's like a speakeasy with a flashing neon sign.
That's a great way to put it.
So why bother hiking to it when I could just drive to Cullasaja? What makes these tucked-away spots worth the extra sweat?
It's really about the psychological filter of a hike. When you pull up to a roadside waterfall in a car, you're experiencing nature in the context of traffic, asphalt, and exhaust fumes.
True.
But when you hike to Secret Falls, the journey recontextualizes the waterfall. It builds this sensory anticipation. Your heart rate goes up as you navigate the routes. You hear the muffled sound of the water slowly sharpening as you approach.
You sort of earn the view.
Exactly. And practically speaking, a half-mile hike with some elevation is enough of a physical barrier to naturally filter out the heavy crowds. You stop being a spectator behind a windshield, and you become a participant in the ecosystem. It creates a much more profound personal connection with nature.
I love that. A participant in the ecosystem. And if you really want to participate, you tackle Glen Falls.
Oh, Glen Falls is a workout.
It is a strenuous 2-mile round trip, but the payoff is a massive triple waterfall. You hike down alongside the gorge to multiple observation decks, viewing separate drops of 70 feet, 60 feet, and 15 feet.
It's stunning.
But how does a river form 3 distinct steps like that instead of just one big drop?
It actually comes back to that geological mechanism we discussed earlier.
Differential erosion.
Yes, but on a much larger scale. As the water flows down the mountain, it crosses alternating bands of rock. You might have a vertical band of soft shale, followed by a thick horizontal shelf of hard quartz or granite.
Okay.
The water easily slices through the soft rock, hits the hard shelf, runs horizontally along it, and then plunges over the edge when it hits the next soft band. It is literally carving a massive staircase over millions of years.
And because you're hiking down alongside it, your perspective is constantly shifting.
Right. You aren't just staring up at a wall of water. You're descending through the geological stages of the gorge.
Just remember, for our listeners, every step you take down that staircase is a step you have to climb back up to get back to your car. So pace yourself. Now, if a strenuous 2-mile vertical climb sounds like a total nightmare, especially if you have kids with you, there is a highly specialized alternative. Hidden Falls to Upper Middle Creek.
Ah, yes. This trail is entirely geared toward just slowing down.
It's a 1-mile round trip starting near the Highlands Aerial Park. You actually have to check in and sign a waiver at their treehouse outpost before you hit the trail. But it is incredibly family-friendly. They've hidden geocaches along the route, and they even provide rock-sifting baskets for kids to search for gems in the stream beds.
The kids love that.
But the most striking thing to me about this specific trail is a physical sensation you feel. As you approach the falls, you experience this massive, sudden temperature drop. Why does that happen?
You're walking right into a localized weather system. Think about how the human body cools itself down by sweating. When sweat evaporates off your skin, the transition from liquid to gas absorbs heat energy from your body, making you feel cold.
Yeah, I thought of that.
Well, a plunging waterfall does the exact same thing to the surrounding air. As the water crashes over the rocks at Upper Middle Creek, it atomizes into a fine mist. And when millions of those tiny water droplets evaporate into the air, they consume heat energy from the gorge.
Oh, wow.
It's a process called evaporative cooling. Combine that natural refrigeration with the dense canopy of hemlocks blocking the sun, and the base of the waterfall can easily be 10 to 15 degrees cooler than the trailhead.
That is literal natural air conditioning.
Obviously, the waterfall is effectively sweating, pulling heat out of the entire gorge.
That is brilliant. Okay, the last hike on our radar is Cullasaja Rockhouse Falls.
What a name.
Right. It's an easy half-mile trail. You start by walking through a tall pine stand, and you eventually arrive at a rocky outcrop framed by massive mossy boulders. Photographers are told to look out for vibrant wildflowers in April and May, alongside these fantastic ancient ferns that stay green almost all year.
Cullasaja is the perfect place to observe how the waterfalls dictate the botany of the region. On a half-mile trail, you are crossing through distinct ecological microzones.
How so?
At the start of the trailhead, you have those tall pines. Pines prefer well-drained, slightly acidic, drier soil, which is exactly what you find on the upper ridges of the plateau. But as you hike down toward the plunge pool, the environment fundamentally changes. You enter that evaporative cooling zone we just talked about.
So it gets damp.
Very damp. The constant mist off the falls creates a permanent humidity dome.
So the plants have to adapt to that constant moisture.
Exactly. Pines can't thrive down there. Instead, you find ancient species of ferns and mosses. Ferns reproduce via spores, not seeds, and those spores require constant, uninterrupted moisture to survive and fertilize. So the waterfall sustains a microclimate where these specific plants have thrived for thousands of years.
It's incredible how the water literally shapes every single aspect of life up there. The rocks, the temperature, the plants.
It even shapes human life and culture, honestly.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's so ingrained in the identity of the region. Like local Highlands advisor Carrie Bateman points out how custom homes in the area are specifically architected from the ground up just to frame waterfall views.
Wow, just for the view.
Yeah. The topography of the water dictates where windows go, where decks are built, and how people orient their daily lives. The waterfalls are really the gravitational center of the plateau.
That is a fascinating way to look at it. The architecture bends to the water, not the other way around. Well, let's pull all of this together. We set out to decode the chaotic map of the Highlands Plateau, and what we found is a landscape perfectly tailored to your intent. If you want maximum awe with minimum effort, you have the 250-foot roadside giants on Highway 64, complete with false advertising names and archaic cash parking fees.
Right. And if you want adrenaline, you have the slippery plunge at bus plage, your butt falls, assuming you respect the physics of a hydraulic trap, of course.
Always respect the washing machine. And if you want serenity, you lace up your boots to feel the evaporative cooling at Hidden Falls or observe the microzones of ferns at Cullasaja. It is just a completely customizable wonderland.
It is. But before we wrap up, I think there's one final concept that kind of reframes this entire conversation.
Ooh, I'm listening.
We've spent this entire time dissecting the large, public, mapped-out falls, the ones with designated parking lots, viewing platforms, and trailheads.
Yeah.
But remember, this is a temperate rainforest with constant massive water flow over high-altitude granite. The erosion never stops. The landscape isn't a static painting. It's actively changing every single day.
Meaning the maps we're looking at are just like a temporary snapshot of right now.
Exactly. Because of that constant flow, the vast majority of this forest remains completely untouched by pavement. There are countless unnamed, unmapped waterfalls out there right now, hidden deep in the Nantahala National Forest, far away from any custom-built home or observation deck.
Oh, wow.
Which leaves you with a really compelling thought. What if the most beautiful, pristine waterfall in all of the Highlands is one that hasn't even been named yet? What if it's waiting right now, just a few hundred yards off an unmarked path, waiting for someone curious enough to just stop talking, stand completely still, and listen for the sound of rushing water.
Oh, I love that. The idea that there's still so much wilderness out there just waiting to be discovered right past the edge of the map. That is the absolute perfect thought to leave you with today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the Highlands Plateau. Grab your $3 in cash, respect those hydraulic traps, and get out there and keep seeking out your own hidden gems. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.